Wow. Wow. That's all you got to
Okay,
say
we're
about that.
live. Sorry, everybody. It's been a while since I've been here, so let's get started. Let me reintroduce myself to anybody who joined in the last couple of weeks. First of all, you're watching Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis for the progressive movement. I'm Margot Pies, one of your co hosts on this show. I'm a scientist, engineer, and occasional journalist. And over here, oops, on this side, there in the middle, we have Carlos Marroquin, an amazing grassroots organizer, and he is working at the AIDS Health Foundation.
You
Like,
got that right.
I always mess it up. And what are you? You're the director of what, Carlos? I really should know this, but I am so bad. And ever
Yeah.
since you stopped being mailman, Carlos the mailman, I don't know.
I
I
was the
can't. I
mailman.
haven't
Everybody knows me as
replaced
the mailman. But
it.
yeah, I am now working with AIDS Healthcare Foundation. I'm the National Director for Food for Health programs.
Yes,
Pretty
food for
much
health.
create programs all over the
And
United
then
States to
yes,
alleviate food insecurity.
hunger. All right, and then all in the far end is our third co-host. That's Jackie Hernandez, who you've seen a lot of recently. She has a background in health care, in general health advocacy. She's an amazing activist, organizer, and she really knows her stuff. So really excited to be here
Thanks,
with
Margaret.
both of you, and we have a lot to talk about. So should we start with Biden and this whole pardoning, the federal
Possession.
pardon of simple possession of marijuana, which apparently didn't actually actually get anybody out of prison. So, Jackie,
Surprise, surprise.
why don't you start us off?
Yeah, hi everybody. So we have a lot to talk about, as we mentioned, and I mean, really, what better way to start than talking about cannabis? So basically, as Margaret said, really, did anyone get really pardoned? Not quite, but this is a step forward because we are going to be seeing conversation about rescheduling cannabis or descheduling it completely. I think this is where the important part of this entire momentum is going to happen. And I really hope that they deschedule it completely. Tobacco and alcohol are not scheduled. And we already know that tobacco and alcohol are worse than cannabis in many senses, from addiction to what they really do overall. And so, really, the conversation should really be focused on what we need to do moving forward and how we can actually get people out of prison once it's descheduled and people's sentences could be expunged. We also know,
So, Jackie, really quick
yeah.
for the viewers, what does it mean to be scheduled or descheduled as a drug?
So basically, you have schedule one, two, three, four, and five, and these scheduling means that it's a controlled substance. That whatever it is that the substance is depending on the level of addiction, the use for it, medication, or just a drug for recreational, and what the level of severity is for all of these different criterias that have to do with mainly addiction and how dangerous it can be. For example, opiates, we know it's already like a scheduled, I believe I have to kind of look it up, but it's not scheduled one even at that. And we see that cannabis is scheduled as dangerous as heroin. And that is like obviously false. We know through research as well that cannabis is not as addictive the way that heroin is. The properties of how cannabis works are so different that it really does not, just like I mentioned, tobacco and alcohol are not even scheduled as controlled. So cannabis really does not deserve to be in that category because we see the different dynamics of it, and it does not get people addicted the way that any even alcohol or cigarettes do. So it's time to really think about research and do evidence based policy. And that means ensuring that this is something that is no longer being criminalized. People are being criminalized through that use. And we know it's mainly people of color targeted.
So there were
Right.
a
Well, the way
number
they
of.
have it classified right now is under.
Go ahead, Carlos.
Go ahead. No, I said the way that they have it classified right now is pretty much on Schedule 1,
Yeah.
which, according to the government, is highly classified or a potential for abuse. It's insane. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
insanity because
And
there's the other drugs
basically,
that are really.
yeah, and also it means that Schedule 1 means that there's no medicinal value to it, and we also know that's not true. We know that a lot of people with different disabilities are also benefiting from different breakthroughs of cannabis. Now, is it a miracle drug? We also can't say that, right? Because we do need to go evidence-based here. We need to talk about science and how it works and how it's different for different disabilities or issues. But we do know that there is enough evidence to show that people can find relief through cannabis, depending on whatever ailment that you have. So, it's one of those things where the government's saying it doesn't have medicinal value, but that's also false. So we do need to think about who it's affecting, right? It's also been people with disabilities who have been affected by Schedule 1 and being so controlled.
And there was certain groups of people that were left out of this whole pardon, right? I mean, in
Yeah.
particular, there were undocumented people who were not
Yeah.
included. Any other groups that were not included?
Just from what I read on the White House page, it was pretty much only undocumented people, which obviously doesn't make sense, right? Because quite honestly, like I've even had an experience at the border myself where, you know, one of those situations where you're crossing the border and then they just stop you and then they're just asking you all these questions and they were specifically asking us like, oh, do you have cannabis, like even this much, like even this little tiny nug or whatever. And we were like, we have no cannabis, and they were trying to really get us. They took us out of the car. This was at the border in Tijuana. So to have that experience as well, that's where the federal like possession of like the federal possession of cannabis would have counted. Like if I would have gotten arrested, let's say if I did have something in the car or like whatever on me, they would have been like, okay, yeah, we're gonna take you into federal prison because it's at the border, and that's where like that kind of pardon would count, right? But again, it doesn't matter if you're undocumented, because if that happened to me and I was undocumented, if they would have taken me for having a small nug or whatever, I would not be pardoned. And that's where it's kind of like, well, how is that different from me being a citizen, right? Even if that situation was me undocumented or documented and I did get arrested, why is that different? And that's really unfair. And I don't know where the thought process was there, to be honest.
So, what do you guys think it was the motivation behind doing this now? I mean, midterms are pretty much around the corner. Is it a safe bet to say that somebody was trying to get some votes, a few extra last minute votes here,
Of
or
course,
is there
yeah.
something else?
Of
Of
course,
course, this
yeah.
is this is yeah, this is political. Obviously, this is political. One of the things that we see that this specific announcement doesn't cover is people that have been incarcerated for minor offenses. Uh, you know, possessions of a joint, serving, having served so much time, and it's on their records. It's not expunging anybody's records. So we got to be clear on that. This is a step in
Yeah.
good direction, but it just starts a conversation. That's what I'm gonna say. This is a baby
Yeah.
step, starting the conversation. That's all it is. It's a starting a conversation. You just barely turn the key. You haven't even opened the door. If we're gonna talk
Yeah.
about if we're gonna talk about cannabis, the usage, the abuse, incarceration, money behind this, you know there's all kinds of issues relating to marijuana, and why they
Hmm.
have been blocking this for decades. They have been blocking it when they have evidence that the marijuana can be used medically, and it has helped people with cancer, for example. There's so much use for this plant, and but they again, there are huge powers behind this that has blocked, from having real reforms taking place.
Yeah, and quite honestly, in my opinion, most of it does have to do with prisons and with police funding, because we see the DEA being the biggest advocate for drug combat money, like with the war on drugs. So from what I see in the perspective, this war on drugs was created to target people of color. We know that it's documented. It's no surprise. And so I think it took forever because prisons really make a lot of profit by incarcerating people over simple things like cannabis even. And I think it's so easy to just get people who like have possession of cannabis or even are selling, right? I think it can be a legitimate business. It can totally be something that people can, make money for. A lot of people in prison were put in there because they were selling it. And how about if they could actually do it legally in a way that they also were safe, right? That everybody was safe. So money can be made, jobs can be built, and we do need to ensure that it's being done in a social justice way as well. That it's not just like we're opening cannabis, here's the business, because then we're going to see problems like Marlboro or big companies coming in, taking up farms or even having patents on certain strains, and then other people can't make them. So we do need to ensure that these policies are also going to play in favor of the farmers already making product, or people of color who want to come into the market and make it in a way that is like legitimate and they're safe doing it. Because that's a problem. We're going to see a lot of corporations trying to jump in, and then Marlboro, for example, had already had the idea. So we need to think about how can we end this prohibition that benefits Latinos, that benefits Black people, that benefits everybody who was affected. So that's kind of where the priority of policy that I want to see. I don't know if I am going to see, but I do know that a lot of special interests like these companies, these big companies, are already trying to get their hands on it, and we're going to have problems with like the cultivation, again, the patents. That's just what I'm seeing, because we do need to pay attention to that too. There's a capitalist problem, right, that we're going to have in cannabis that we need to watch out for.
Well, everything is about control, and we're seeing Wall Street already looking at this.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
you hit it in the nail when you're talking about patents. This
Yes,
is
that's
the corporations that want to be
mhm.
able to nail it and pretty
Yeah.
much block anybody else from having this. It's all
Yeah.
about control right now. So these conversations that the Biden administration is bringing out, and Margaret, I think that we need to put one of those images that you created. But this
We'll
particular
get to that.
yes, but this particular conversations that Biden administration is starting to have are good conversations that we
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
have.
Yeah,
For
definitely.
decades we should have been having these conversations,
This is
but
huge too, coming from
exactly. So
Biden.
it's like waking people up.
Yeah, and one thing too that I have to say, when we were talking about student loans, like when I was talking with friends about student loans, we were like, honestly, the next one's gonna be cannabis. Like, because before the midterms, he's gonna do something about cannabis. He's gonna want the votes, and we're gonna see Republican pushback. And then that's where like a lot of the people are gonna be like, wait a minute, that Republicans against cannabis? Because we know there's a lot of libertarians and a lot of like Republicans that also like cannabis. So upon seeing that, like, do you really want to vote for that guy? I don't know, but I think this is huge because you see Biden, like, he like lived through reefer madness. He lived through all of that time, and
Well,
he's doing something dank. Is it good Biden or bad Biden? It's dank Biden. He did it. Like, he's talking about it. I think it's hilarious.
Thank Biden.
It's dank
The
Biden. All
sweet
the
thank
memes. These
Biden.
memes are strong.
right. One of the things for sure is I've been traveling a lot to a lot of red states, by the way, and everybody smokes pot.
Of
Everybody
course.
smokes pot. You know what I mean? At
How are
all
you not
kinds of levels of
distressed?
society. So it's not just,
No.
down in the ghetto, but at high levels, of
Yeah.
circle.
And I
You have
mean that,
people out there smoking pot in public.
and there's
Florida, Texas, for crying out loud. Now, what Biden
yeah.
did is he really upset a lot of the Republicans, because now the governor of Texas came out and pretty much say, well, we
Mm.
are not going to be part of the people over here in Texas. They need to serve the time. We need to be strong in crime, against crimes. All those talking points that they like to use.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be, go ahead.
This is going to have to be a law, actually, that Schumer and Booker like actually introduced in June, July, summer. It's called the Cannabis Administration Opportunity Act, and this was introduced in the Senate. So this is what we talk about momentum, right? This is what momentum is. This is when people, all of you on the audience, if you're for cannabis reform, if you're for cannabis, justice here, you have to write to your senators like now. You have to write to your representatives right now, and you could do it through normal, you can do it through the last prisoner project. They have a lot of outreach and writing letters to your representative. So right now is the time to write those letters to really get this moving and get people to see, the senators to see, like, the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act is something that people want. So this is the time to shine, y'all. This is the time to send your letters, actually call and let them know this is what you want. Do you want cannabis reform? So when we talk about these issues, people need to know what they need to do. And that's one thing I would definitely suggest, because the law is what's going to get illegalized or decriminalized, whatever ends up happening. But at least every state would have to pretty much abide, unless it's like the lawsuits. But then there you go, you vote them out, you vote whichever politician's not gonna do its job.
Yeah.
But this is where we actually shine. Let's go out and vote, let's go out and show up and let them know what we want. So I just wanted to let y'all know that.
Margaret,
think one of,
do you have the news clipping regarding Governor Newsom, the announcements that he made, that actually he just recently signed a bill regarding, um, the the bill that protects the clock
Workers.
marijuana use. It's called the clock marijuana use, and
I
that is
don't
it.
have that.
Okay, so pretty much he signed a bill with several new cannabis bills into law, including one that bans companies from testing employees for
Mm,
marijuana.
Mm,
Starting
that's
in
good.
2024, workers who use marijuana while not at work can no longer be penalized. There will be exception for those in the building and construction trades or jobs requiring federal background clearance. But
yeah.
another one of those things, that if you do your thing outside, it's just like, as long as you don't come high to work, right? Uh, Things like this. So these are good steps moving forward.
In Carlos, I found the bill. It's AB 2188. So AB 2188 is that bill that he signed into law about not being able to test for cannabis.
There's
So you were
there
saying,
was
Margaret.
oh there was a screenshot that Jackie sent that I think highlights what actually Biden did and what he should do. And this is from the Drug Policy Alliance. So just to summarize what actually happened, so Biden pardoned everyone with a simple federal marijuana possession charge. The Drug Policy Alliance is saying that what Biden should do is actually pardon any federal marijuana charge, including sales. So his pardon was very, very limited in scope. Biden urged governors of all 50 states to pardon at the state level, as Carlos already highlighted. The governor of Texas has said, not doing that. The Drug Policy Alliance is saying that Biden should help Congress pass a federal legislation act, such as the Cannabis, which Jackie just mentioned, and also so Biden initiated a review of how marijuana is scheduled on the Controlled Substances Act. And what the Drug Policy Alliance is saying is that they should fully deschedule marijuana from the Controlled Substance Act. So really, I think what Biden did was a small step in the right direction, but it sounds like it's still fairly limited in scope here. So there's still a lot more that can be done. And I don't know what the likelihood of seeing more of this happen, but it's one small step, even if it was maybe a shallow one to get some extra votes for the midterms.
Yeah.
I see the attempt to get young people to turn out here by focusing on student debt and marijuana, both of which are limited in scope, and the Biden administration has already backed down on some of that student debt cancellation. So So, this is, again, let me see here. It is a bit of a good Biden, bad Biden, and then a dank Biden altogether. So, all rolled into one. Yeah.
Yeah, could we done more? Yeah, right. There's always that part with a lot of the
you
momentum
know.
here.
But I think it's critical and it's super important for us to be pushing and remembering people that we need to
Yeah,
continue to advocate, because we cannot be satisfied with crumbs. We cannot be satisfied with a little bit. We want to be able to get to the finish line. The finish line means a lot. It means being able
yeah,
to erase all this pretty much you have a record in the court system that sometimes prevents from people from getting good jobs because of a minor offense that they did when they were young, or
or
because
even
they got
housing.
caught. Right, or even older, when they got caught with a little, with a joint, an ounce of marijuana. For I mean, we got some of these, white collar crimes that are committed, and they get slapped in the hand. We're talking about people that destroy, millions of lives, by real crimes, and you get caught, because you're smoking a joint out there, and be sent to prison, and you got to carry that the rest of your life. No, that needs to be erased. That need to be wiped out. Those are good policies right there. Those are
Yeah, I
good
mean,
policies.
think about it too. I mean, when we talk about how many people are put in jail, I mean, I have the number here. It's 2.3 million people in jail, right? Well, not jail, sorry, prison. And this is huge. We have the highest number of people in prison in the world. And when we talk about, are we free? Is this country the land of the free? I don't know. I mean, if we have that many people in prison, and then that means that all of those people cannot vote. They don't have rights to government aid programs like FAFSA or even housing. It affects the way to get a job. How are we really expecting people to come out of prison and have a job or whatever and be able to maintain their family and not, go sell again in the streets? So it's one of those things where we really have to think about the prison system. I am an evolutionist, and I do believe that this way of putting people in prison and hoping that they're just going to come out and be magically okay is ridiculous, and it's inhumane. And when we talk about not only cannabis, but a lot of the policies that we criminalize, we have to talk about the prison system and how they're making so much money off of people being in there. And all these policies that don't make sense many times have to do with throwing just people in prison. We have people with mental illness, I'll throw them in prison. You have people that don't have housing, that are unhoused, throw them in prison. We can't keep having the prisons as a solution to these problems. We just
Right.
cannot. That's not humane at all. We can't be say we're land of the free. We have so many people in prison.
Well, those are
Well,
cheap ways. Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, there's an incentive to put people in prison too, because we have private prisons and they're for profit, and so
Did you?
it's it's just backward to make your prison system a for-profit system, because it's just gonna encourage putting
Yeah.
people in there to make money.
Did you guys see or know that they use third grader or fourth grader test results for reading levels and math levels to follow kids to see like when they're going to do something illegal? So basically, let's say you don't have a very good score in your mathematics or in your reading levels, that you have lower reading level scores. Basically, the police can get some of those files that say which kids did bad. This is from the school. This is what the school to prison pipeline is. And they're already looking at those kids and following them, watching them, being more, you know, on them to see if like when are they going to mess up, when are they going to mess up. But this is literally test results are given from the school to the police to already start tracking how many troublemakers are going to be in society.
How is that not illegal? That should be a violation of privacy.
Yeah, it
How
should.
how are they allowed to get access to that information?
I don't know, and I would like to know, but when I saw this documentary, especially that talked about it and that they were harassing the
Right.
dad, I was like, this is too much. Like, the same question, Margaret. How isn't this illegal? Like, what? But as you
Yeah,
said,
no, this
this
Yeah.
is
This is lack
this
of
is
right. This is just lack of leadership. Lack of leadership. When the only solution you could do is force, is a fist, is punishment. You know, you are no leader. You are no leader. If you cannot come up with solutions except jail, except intimidation, except being able to look into what you are doing and micromanage you.
Big
You know what
Brother
I mean?
right here.
Then pretty much, yeah, but then pretty
That's Big
much,
Brother.
you're not creating anything. Create ways that are, you know what I mean, that will bring people out of poverty, that will bring people out of the streets, having to being forced to sell little dime bags, right? Because you don't have enough to put on your table. Come up with solutions for that. And if your solution is to put somebody in jail, you ain't no leader, brother. You ain't no leader. you
the
know
funny thing is probably that a lot of those cops had pretty bad test scores in the third and fourth grades, to
I
be
mean,
honest.
you don't even need like what is it, 6 months of training for LAPD, for example? Like, oh my God, are you serious? That's all they get, 6 months of training and multiple choice tests, by the way. It's like, oh my God, and you guys are like targeting kids and like looking at what they're doing. And by the way, the thing that bothers me about the school system is that they're also giving this to the police and the different ways that they stratify kids, like gifted kids. Remember, like the Gate Club or what is it? I don't know, but the
Yeah, Kate.
gifted kids, and then like the AP kids, and like here you go, the regular kids. Yeah, they're the troublemakers. And I've worked with so many kids in my life. When I was a teacher in elementary school and in middle school, and I worked with high school kids, and I have to tell you, like it's not even like that kids are dumb or that they're rude. It's honestly how you treat them. Because
Hmm.
this I've been in classrooms where the teacher was like, "Oh, they're troublemakers. They're gonna make your life miserable." They were so cool, and they were always like, "Oh, Miss Hernandez, can I help you pass these out? Can I collect these?" Like, but the way that I treated them was like people, not like they were just trouble to me, not like they sucked. Like, I treated them like people, and I was surprised the teacher was there too, and he was like, "Oh my God, I don't know why they like you so much." But I heard one of the kids, yeah, yeah. One of the kids told what he was being really rude to like the classroom, and she was the girl was like, "Shh, be quiet. She's really nice. Don't make trouble for her." So it was kind of like that whole thing where like if they think you're nice and if they like you because you treat them well, they're gonna want to treat you well, and that's been my experience. So
Yeah, I have to say, as somebody who was completely failed by the public school system, I was I was really rude to a lot of my teachers because well, for that I was bored, but for another, I could sense the elitism at my high school, and I was in the AP and honor program and was listed under gate. Oh, we never did anything, so I don't know what the point was of that, but I saw my name on there, so I guess I was. But it was dumb. Like I could see how a lot of the teachers preferred the honors and AP students and really embraced them and saw the kids that were in the regular classes as just being like a lost cause. I
yeah.
took a regular math class. I think it was algebra 2, and I was so bored in the class. I slept through the class
Oh
basically.
my God.
But it's amazing that I'm at the number 2 department in the country for what I do. But here I am, and
What
yeah. So
is
I
it
slept
that
through
you
the
do
class, but
again? What is it that
yeah,
you
I
do
work.
again?
I'm a physicist
But you know
at
what's
Georgia
Oh, you
Tech,
fixed it.
and I work on climate modeling.
But
But
you know what's crazy, Margaret? I had this. Well, I was bad. Like I literally like Oh my God, I got a 1 point GPA at one point in my life, like literally in my freshman semester. I too was like, oh my God, it was just so difficult because I got in trouble. I had detention, Saturday schools. Like, I'm telling you, I was not the best student, but it's because I was not really in an environment that was as nurturing for me. And I was in some AB classes because at one point I was in the regular classes, and just like you, Margaret, I was so bored. It was English. I could not get through it without being like, I want to rip my hair out.
Yeah. So let me. I know we got to get back to needs, but I want to finish what I was going to say about this math class, and then I want to add one more thing from my high school experience. So yeah, so like these math teachers were so bad, or my elective French class too. There was no honors or AP French. Like she literally told us, oh, because this is an elective, I can't actually teach you French. Even
What?
though we kept begging her, no, we really want to learn
Oh my
French.
God. This
No,
is.
I can't really because it's just an elective. Like, I mean, that's how ridiculous some of these teachers are. They just don't care. And so this math teacher, I would just sleep through his class, but like, there was no effort really to engage the students. It was just like, if you don't if you're not self-motivated, or if you're not able to withstand the crushing oppression of the school system, then you're just nobody cares, and you're
Yeah.
just looked at as stupid, basically. So then my other story is that I took a regular world history class in the ninth grade, and I would chat with this girl who sits next to me, and one time she pierced her lip in the class. I was like busting up. I was like, oh my gosh, you're crazy. So the teacher got really upset, and this guy, I'll
Oh
never
my.
forget, he had this massive like ring on his finger. It was like this jam or something. He would play with it anyway. So he made us do standards. Now I'm a smartass, and I was a really bad smartass as a teenager, in that I didn't know how to turn it off. And I took two pens, and I had to do standards. And he's like, okay, you gotta do standards. So I took two pens, and I did two lines at once. And so I finished it really fast and turned it in. And he was like, he didn't know what to do with himself. It's like, what? You're done? I'm like, yeah, count them. These teachers think you're so dumb, right? And they treat you like that. And then you turn around and you're like, actually, I'm not dumb. You're the one who's dumb. You're wasting my time. And so, yeah, so like a lot of clever and curious kids get lost in this system where they're already, from the moment they walk in, are labeled failures, and are not given the attention that they deserve.
Yeah.
And to be fair, so for some teachers, they did come in wanting to do good things, but they also struggle with not having enough support too. But at the same time, there are a lot of teachers who get very comfortable in their job and completely ignore what they're supposed to do, and to actually help help the students and motivate them and make them excited about what they're learning. And so the students get lost, and that sets them up for failure going into the future, right? So yeah, I really hate as much as I don't like having, you know this split between the private schools, tending to be better because they have a lot of money, and the public schools struggling. What happened here?
I did
Hang
that.
on. Oh, okay. Like it's just me. Okay. Yeah. So as much as I hate that, I don't. I really hate the public school system in the United States, because I was held back, basically. I lost years trying to make up for the failures of the public school system, and how my public high school failed me as a kid. So I don't. I mean, this is really going off the track here, but
No, I
this
think
whole thing with the police, and
it's on point.
saying that kids are, these are the kids that are going to end up in jail. It's like, well, you kind of set them up for failure, and now you're
Exactly.
handing them over to the cops. and you're ruining their entire lives. And it takes a lot of commitment
Hmm.
and willingness to persevere and struggle against a system that is set up against you. So
And
yeah,
let's
and this
remember this.
goes to to drugs and being caught up
Yeah.
in that. Like you're being set up to fail.
I think you hit it
I
like
can,
perfectly.
yeah, I can tell you this. Look, when I was back in my days in high school, I'm not gonna say when, but back then, way back then in the '70s, in high school, I tell you, it's like gangs were very real. The
Yeah.
streets were very real. The pressure was very real. Growing up to join a gang, and I remember going to high school, and I loved baseball. I wanted to sign up for baseball. I wanted to be part of the team. And I remember when I went and they told me that's the place where you go and you need to go talk to the teacher. They're signing up right now. All the, whoever wants to be in the team. And I remember going over there, walking. There's a line, a student line. When my turn came in, the teacher looked at me. He looked at me up and down from top to bottom, bottom up. And then he tells me, "You're not welcome here. Go." Just like that. What do you think he did to me? As a young person, it's just I felt this small. I felt the worst. So what did I do? I was hanging on the streets with my homies. See, sometimes that's what people do. People are supposed to be helping you and motivating you. That's what we're doing to our young people. We label them without knowing them. So you were right on point, Margaret. Sometimes as soon as we see a coworker walking in, you know what I mean, because he looks a certain way, it's like right away we want to label them. And even if they had a rough life, or even if they were that, so what? We're there to work. We're there to, you know what I mean, to lift people up. And that's what we have to do. We need politicians now that instead of focusing in the negative, we got to look at the positive. This is what the people are craving for right now. They're looking for solutions, not just the talking points. Not so much about, oh, we pro-life, and then you do everything against being pro-life. So that's where we are right now. So yes, good Biden, good step forward, but we need more. And this is just the beginning. We need programs for our young people. We need solution. We need to get people out of prison for all these minor offenses. And we need to wipe out their some of their records so that they can be go on and move into to get a better jobs. Some of those more talented people have records, and they we are blocking, society is blocking them from moving forward, for being able to achieve their best. Sometimes we are the stumbling block, even for our families, for our young people, for our kids. So if you're a father, you're a mother, let's take an inventory. Let's look inside how we are treating our kids. We should be their best friend. They shouldn't have to be looking for someone else. They should be able to come to us when they have problems. And a lot of times, the reason why they don't come to us is because they already know what they're going to expect to hear from us. Hello, parents. I'm a parent. I know what I'm talking about. So we need to take a step back, chill out, and come down to their level. Not like this, not pointing the finger at them, but actually reasoning with. They are human beings. They have their own mind. They have their own personalities. They have their own challenges. You don't sit with them in school. You don't know the pressures that the kids are going through day in and day out. The minute that they step out of your house, there's a certain pressure that they have to push against, because society is telling them what they need to wear, and maybe they don't have that kind of clothing, and now they feel awkward. Why? Because they cannot compete. So, let's take a chill pill, and there's more work that we need to do
Or maybe a
as a
joint.
parent. Hey,
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
How about some magic mushrooms so that we can expand our minds and be
That
one with
too.
nature? Get out there with the
somebody
trees.
one time asked one of
Have they
the
just
chicken.
scheduled that? Do they also have that as schedule like one? I think, by the way.
Somebody, somebody, somebody said, somebody had asked Cheech and Chong, something about when he met Bill Clinton. what he thought,
Uh,
whether he excelled or not. He goes, I don't think he did because he didn't even recognize me, you know. And he was a well-known comedian, especially in that scene. But look, there's a lot of work to do, Margaret. I think that we spend a lot of time on this subject, but we need to move on and talk about a couple other things that are happening, around the world and around the United States.
Yes, there's other things that we said we were going to talk about, but I completely forgot.
I mean, the conversation really
We
like
got so
went
into
went well.
it that I
Yeah.
lost track. Okay, well, I remember labor's doing good things right now. We should talk about labor.
Well, there's a strong labor movement happening right now, across the United States, everywhere, amongst the unions, the work that is being done. But, again, if we are going to succeed, in moving into the future, we must, we
Sorry.
must be able to organize and become, more proactive, and especially when it comes to labor, to the labor movement, to look at the needs of the people and needs of the workers, because again, as the world right now, the world is the world leaders. Let me put it like the CEOs. They're already been talking a lot about an upcoming recession. They're already talking about eliminating jobs. On top of that, we have the futuristic, ages that are coming. I'm talking about computerizing, all the computer world, all this stuff that is also going to wipe out a lot of jobs. So the way that we can fight back all these things that are coming, and believing these things are coming, economy, the future. They're talking about recession. They're talking about jobs, laying off. The way we are going to be able to fight back on this is by organizing the labor movement, organizing behind it, supporting the labor movement, talking to the co-workers. Your co-worker is not the enemy, and the only way that we're going to be able to represent a strong labor movement is when the workers are united, when we are united. And I understand that sometimes we have workers that don't want to work and you got to carry the load. But there's ways to deal with all that. But yes, you could score some points talking, being out there behind your boss, and being Mr. or Mrs. Nice person, but the fact is that we got to look at the bigger picture, and we got to be able to organize our labor.
Yeah,
You
this is a. Oh, sorry, Jackie, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's the hard part. I was actually having conversation with folks on labor notes, and it's on this book called Secretos de un Organizador, which is like secrets of an organizer or labor organizer. And I think part of the difficult part about the labor issue is that what they were talking about is a lot of people feel uh how do you say this, animado, like that they don't feel like things are gonna happen, things are gonna like change. Sorry, I did this whole book thing in Spanish and I couldn't finish it because I had to do other committee things, but they're still doing it and it's a great book to read. But I was doing it in Spanish, so that's why some of my words I'm like, which word is it? So sorry if I'm like my mind is all juggled up. But basically a lot of the talking within our coworkers has to be more so than just convincing them that it's good, but more so like you're not trying to sell something to them, you're trying to understand them, you're trying to listen to them and seeing what they care about, because all of us care about something at work, be it who wants to work for like 5 days a week, 40 hours a week. Like honestly, I don't, nobody does, because we shouldn't be working that much for that long. And when you talk about sometimes to people who have two jobs, right, because they're trying to make it, there's problems at these both jobs, you want to really understand what they care about. Is it the manager that's being giving them horrible hours? Is wage theft happening? Because a lot of wage theft does happen. We talked about white collar crime, and this is one of the biggest crimes out there. It's like billions of dollars in wage theft. Like, what does that person care about enough to want to either create a union or join a union or do something about it, right? Right now, they're calling it the labor rebellion, which I think I love that term because it's not only in the US, this is happening everywhere. This is happening also in the UK. This is also happening all over the world with farmers, with a lot of different workers. So people, especially after the pandemic, were like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I
Right.
putting up with this? Why am I an essential worker and then not being paid like I'm actually worth, more than a parking space? Because honestly, some parking spots are worth you're paying more for a parking spot than people are paying for a person to work. So when we think about those things, like it's such a different aspect of how we organize, like trying to actually listen to what the person cares about. And we see this with the nurses right now. We know the whole pandemic was hell for them, and it continues being hell because for profit hospitals are still trying to just staff them with as many patients as possible when nurses are putting their lives at risk, they're putting their patients at risk, they're putting lives at risk. And they hate that. They see that it's horrible for the patients, it's horrible for them. And in fact, I want to like just mention 15,000 nurses walked out of in Minnesota in
Right.
protest for understaffing and overwork. So we see this all across the board. Teachers are also fed up. We talked about lower resources, like Margaret said, that they don't have. Imagine even worse right now. So
Yeah.
there's a lot
We need
happening, but
to.
it's so
Right.
cool.
Right. We need to be inviting, we're going to be inviting some of the labor leaders to come on this show and speak with us about the labor movement because it is critical, folks. By definition, the labor movement is an organized effort on the part of workers. This is when workers come together to improve their economic status, their social status by uniting their efforts, by uniting through labor unions. That's what definition is for the labor movement, and that's what we need right now. Is we need that. That's how we're being able to achieve the raise of minimum wage, the hours, the fair hour and wages. That's how we've been able to get sometimes even them hiring more people when you don't have to do three and four other people's jobs on top of yours. This is how we'd be able to, through the labor movement, we'd be able to achieve such a thing as vacation, the different things, benefits that you have, healthcare, you know uh, retirement, all those little things add up. And guess what? They are not just going to give it to you. If it was for corporations, if it was up to the bosses and to employers, they will not just give it to you. They want to be able to have as much as they can for them, and the less they can for you, because it means more money in their pockets. The labor movement, that's the opposite. It rallies behind the workers. A united front of workers puts so much pressure on employers to do the right thing. If it was up to them right now, you and me would be earning $2 an hour, and they would tell us that
Or
be grateful
nothing.
what you have. That's what they would tell us. They will not give us, a retirement plan. They will not give us health care if it was up to them. The only reason they do it is because of the labor movement. So I am big on that, folks. And you guys know that I'm really big on that. Right now, and you could probably see that even in your wherever you may live at, whether it's in the East Coast, whether it's in the West Coast, wherever at, you see your mailman working out there at 10 o'clock at night. So there's a big push right now by upper management, by the postmaster general, to give you as much as possible with less people working. So there's a lot of stuff that happen that people are not aware of. It's not up to the mailman to go be out there at 10 o'clock at night delivering mail. It's because of the conditions that are being presented to them. And this is why we must unite, and we must fight back, and we must file those grievances and do whatever it takes, and let them go all the way up to the highest part of the court, you know what I mean, in behalf of the people and the workers, so that we be able to challenge these work conditions that people, are forced to work under. And that includes the school systems, the teachers, the amount of students that they have. and then you expect them to have the same results. If you starving you starving the schools by not giving them enough money, but you expect the expectancy is for them to have high scores, and you have classrooms that are so full of kids, with little resources, you set them up for failure from the beginning. So we must do better, people. And that comes for us organizing. So a big shout out to our teachers that continue to stand together and fight for our kids.
Yeah, I think, I hear from the opposing side, right? The people who think that, they think of themselves as an entrepreneur, and they think that the entrepreneurs are the ones that are doing everything. They make the jobs, they make the world go round. And in some ways, I can understand some of their argument, right? Yeah, okay, yeah, you took a risk, you created a business, it was successful, you hired people, but at the same time, you have no business without the people that you're hiring. So, there has to be a shared say to a certain degree in what happens. You're not you're not authoritarian, right? You're not a dictator just because you have a company. You can't just decide that your workers don't deserve health care, that they don't deserve a raise, just so that your shareholders can be happy or your investors can be happy, right? So I think that there has to be a recognition, and I don't really hear this from that side, the recognition that the workers do have a say, and they deserve a say, and they deserve certain rights to be able to 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 go on strike, to negotiate their wages, to have some kind of leverage when it comes to their livelihood, because it is their livelihood. So I think that what is going on right now with this potential recession, or I think we're probably in a recession, just the start of it, and we're starting to see the effects of what the Federal Reserve is doing around the world. The United Kingdom had a sovereign debt problem just a week ago or so. The European Union, they're also struggling. The Bank of Japan is struggling. There's inflation. I think the Netherlands had like 12% inflation. Other parts have like 11%, 10% inflation. This hasn't gone away yet. And the goal of dealing with that here in the United States, the Federal Reserve goal, is to keep increasing interest rates. And big companies, like JP Morgan Chase, maybe it was one of those banks, they were basically rooting for higher unemployment. So basically, in order to solve this inflation problem, they're going to raise interest rates. This is going to cause a recession in which people are going to lose jobs, and that they think is somehow going to reduce demand and slow down the economy and bring down inflation. And all that means is that when you really think about it, you as a worker, you're just a pawn in this whole scheme, and they're just using you as a way to to adjust the economy so that the debt holders basically will be happy, because inflation is bad for people who are the ones that are making money off of interest. So if that interest is not keeping track with inflation, they're not getting a return on that. So that's part of what is going on here. So I really think it's really important that labor really gets activated during this time, because they're using you, basically. They're going to put you out of a job to fix the economy, and that is not the right way to do it. And the Federal Reserve is at fault for this, but also because they're hearing the pressure from Wall Street, and also from the politicians who want to be able to say, yeah, the economy is great, including Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden wants to be able to say, yeah, we fixed inflation. So that's the game that is being played, and I think that doesn't get enough attention. The workers are just like a statistic, basically, but each worker is a
Yeah.
person.
And let's remember this, that when we're talking about what you were saying, that we give acknowledgement to the fact that yes, they, a lot of these people that started companies, they took a high risk. We give them all the credit for that. Yeah, it was their money, it was all that. But you were using our roads, to be able to transport all the merchandise back and forth, taxpayers' roads, and then they give you all these tax credits and you get all kinds of compensation for what you did for having a certain amount of employees. So see, there is a balance there. So you have to do the right thing too. You have to be able to pay fair wages to your employees
And
because they
apart
are the
from
ones that, yeah.
And to add to that, Carlos, the other thing about that is that with all the money they make, they pay interest groups. So they are the interest groups. So they are able to lobby the government with all their corporate money and have a say in our government and control politicians that way. Meanwhile, people make those corporations happen and go around, and we have no say. Our votes barely count in the national elections, and it's only when it's local elections that maybe we have some power. But we see all those ads that we're already getting here in California, for example, that corporations are pumping out. They make money, and then they use that money to have politics go against us, the people. So we have to be involved in every way, be it at workplace, because at your workplace, that's where your workplace also has power over your life, your livelihood, how much money you're paying for the products that you're using. Literally, corporations when have control of the way that we live in that sense. And that's why when people criticize when I talk about anti-capitalist issues, they're like, "Oh, but Jackie, anything that's socialist is gonna be like they're gonna control you." And I'm like, what do you think is happening right now? Corporations are controlling us through the way that they pay us, through the way that they give us breaks, the way the vacations. They control us through the money that they spend to fund politicians to print out ads against propositions that benefit the people. They do that all with the money that you worked for to do for that company. And that's what we need to understand, that it's way more than just our job. They are funding policies that are against us in housing, in roads, in transportation, in schools, everything. It really does affect everything.
Preacher, sister, preacher. I mean, you hitting the nail because that's the truth. And this is why elections are so important. This is why you got to look at who's behind a lot of the politicians, who's giving them the money for the campaigns. Are corporations
Yeah.
funding your politician, your representative, your councilman? Who are funding them? So we have to take a hard look right now in 2022 because every politician will have you believe that they have your back. Republicans are so good at that. Built America, building in America, but yeah, they are the first ones to ship your job out. They're the first ones to do that.
And
They're
I'm
the first one to take away from you, huh?
and that's kind of where we also have to pay attention to the progressives running for whatever party or for the Democrats, because when you look at opensecrets.com or .org, I forgot which one it was, but one of those, but
That
it's
org.
opensecrets.org. You can see how much funding some of the Democrats also get, and be like, okay, which one is a grassroots Democrat and which one is the corporate Democrat? Because then we get Gavin Newsom, where like he gets paid out by health insurance companies and he just stomps on AB 1400, a single payer bill. So that's where we also are like, oh, what's happening? Why did Gavin Newsom do that? Look at who funded him.
Yeah, we got to call it like it is because, see, that's the only way that we are going to be able to move forward and be able to have justice, fairness, is because a lot of the politicians from both sides of the aisle take money from big corporations, from billionaires. And I don't want to kind of open up another can of worms, but I will. Look at where your union, who they're banking with. They bank with these big banks that take your people's homes, their workers' homes away because of unfair business practices. So we need to put pressure on our unions, and that comes by you participating, by getting involved, and actually say that we need to move away from all this, from doing business with all these corporations that are hurting the workers. That's a strong union right there, you know. But we cannot have it both ways. We got to be able to stand strong. We cannot be saying we pro workers and then we over there cheering for the developers, you know. And I understand they need jobs. Carpenters need jobs, and electricians and all that, plumbers, blah blah blah, all that. But you know, if people are going to be treated unfair, then we got to stand together. This is where all the unions come together and form partnerships of strength, of power. You know, as they say it, as unions say, you know, a harm to one is a harm to all. And that's the way it should be. That's the way we got to think, people. You know, if you're hurting one of the workers, you know what I mean? You're hurting all of us. If you piling up work on one person, you're hurting all of us. Because that person sooner or later is going to break. He's going to call in sick. He's going to be out. And guess who's going to have the work that he's doing? You're going to inherit. So we got to think like that. And we cannot be able to be fully trusted that the employers are going to do the right thing, because they're not. Or that our politicians are going to do the right thing, because they're not. And that brings us to something that we wanted to cover, an issue statement regarding that, something that happened here in the city of Los Angeles at City Council.
Oh yeah.
Jackie.
Oh my God.
The
This is
Well,
a hard
drama.
one, people, but we have to be able to take a stand. We have to be able
yeah.
to condemn such of actions, of, you know, whether it's verbal or physical, whatever. We have to be able to speak out against injustice and all kinds of racism, etc. Go ahead, Jackie.
Those three. Tell us the
Oh
names.
yes. I mean, but we have the labor organizer that we also have to look into.
Oh,
But
the four.
yeah, the four. But the three politicians in LA City Council who are being anti-black are Nuri Martinez, Kevin De Leon, and Gil Cedillo. And the fourth one was a labor organizer that I need to get their name. It is Ron Herrera. So yeah, these are the four, and this is what also we mean that when we have politicians, we need to look at not only like are they Latino or any person of color, like are they anti-black? Do they talk about centering social justice and talking about anti-blackness? Do they talk about being able to address these racial issues? Because that's important. We just saw this with this LA City Council's talking BS, I must say, about Bonham's child, and it was horrible. I listened to the audio, and I mean, honestly, I just have to say they have to resign, and they seriously we need to really rethink about how we also listen to politicians. It's not enough to relate to them. It's not enough to say they're Latino or even black, because we can also see that some people like Candace Owens can be horrible. So it's more than representation. Representation is nice, but what do they really stand for is what we really need to look into. So
Absolutely. I
Oh,
agree. I think that they need to resign as well. Mike Bonin called for their resignation. I think that's absolutely the
yeah,
least they can do. I mean, how can you walk back the statements that they made, the name calling that they did, just to say, and I think one of the Martinez tried to say, like, oh, I was frustrated and angry. Like, so, I can get frustrated and angry, and I'm not gonna go call somebody such horrible names and trash talk and say racist things about the child, somebody's
it's
child.
horrible.
And I mean, they really went beyond anything acceptable for a city council member in as diverse of a city as Los Angeles, especially given the history of violence against Black people in Los Angeles that goes back to the 60s, right? Like, this is hurtful, and it creates distrust, and it creates division between two communities that really should be united together. And it's just totally disgusting. I don't, and I have to say, like, I can't say that I'm totally surprised either, because I think that this is something within the Latin, Latina, Latinx, whatever community, Hispanic community, where there is a certain amount of racism against Black people, against Asians
Yeah.
within the community, and that needs to end. I I was surprised when I first learned about it and heard about it in my own personal life, and I think it's just stupid. You need to grow up, and you're not better than anybody else, and this is not an acceptable part of the culture.
One thing that I have to say too, though, is that they were talking about the redistricting the areas, and that's where it's really bad because you're talking about political power as well now, not just shit talking. Sorry, I said that, but not just BS talking, but honestly, you're talking about redistricting and who's part of the conversation and who's not. Like that is severe. When we talk about that, that is what I would say. Like we talk about redlining, we talk about all these policies that were made on purpose, and this was made on purpose. And the fact that she was like, "Oh, he's with the blacks," it's like, wait a
Yeah,
minute,
the
but
fourth Black member of city council or something.
yeah,
Like,
and the way you're redistricting it has to do with your racism. Ugh, that's like, bye. They have to go.
not
I'm gonna
okay
say
for white
this.
people to say. It's not okay for anybody to be that
I'm
way.
gonna,
Go ahead,
yeah,
Carlos, because we have to wrap up too. I gotta go to
yeah.
bed.
I'm gonna say this because I know all the parties involved in this. Actually, I have a relationship with them. I know them. I have sat down and broke bread with them. We have had conversations in the past. I know the work that they have done over the years, good or bad. I know them, and it's really hurtful to hear that this kind of language is coming from them. It's really hurtful, people, and I condemn this at the strongest way possible. I know Mike Bunning, and he's a good man. He's been under a lot of pressure because of the homeless crisis in Venice, in that area out there in the west side. He's been into an enormous amount of pressure, being criticized every time, left and right, by Republicans, by a lot of Republicans out there, by people that have no clue and understanding of the crisis that exists not only in Venice, but this is nationwide. And he's constantly being attacked, called names and everything. But attack at this level by city officials that
Yeah.
hold this kind of high offices is uncalled for. And the calls for resignation are, in my opinion, are just because if this is being said, behind closed doors, and this is being said in public spaces, in gatherings, I'm troubled by that. I'm very troubled by that. Mike Bunning is a good man, and his child is a beautiful child, and he doesn't deserve that. And shame on them for doing this. This is exactly what we don't need in Los Angeles. The city is struggling with big problems, big issues. Racism is one of them, and I call on my Hispanic community. Shame on you for being racist too at many times. Marco, you're absolutely correct because I hear that. I have
So
seen
many
that with my
times.
own eyes. It is so
Me
wrong.
too.
The attacks against immigrants by the so-called Chicanos. Shame on you because where do you think your parents came from? And you demonizing other people because you think you're now better than them. Shame on you. I'm gonna call it the way it is, people. You know, Hispanics sometimes are some of the biggest racists. Instead of learning from what is being done to us and using it in a positive way, we become just like them that have oppressed
Mhm.
us for
Mhm.
years. Why? Because we have a good job now, because we
Yeah.
have position, because we drive a better car, because we live in a different community.
That's right.
Shame on you. So I call you out. If you're a racist, it's shameful. It's shameful. You need to change your ways because this is exactly what we teach our kids. That's why I hear some parents teaching their kids some of this stuff against other ethnic groups, and it's troublesome. You need to correct yourself because karma is a mother. Karma is a mother. So let's create a better world in which all of us are accepted.
Yeah, we need a lot of
That's my
inner
saying.
work to do. Yeah, there's a lot of inner work that we have to do, community work that we have to do. I saw this in 2020 with the BLM movement. A lot of like Latinos were like, "Oh my God, the stuff that they would say, so anti-black," and I was like, "What is wrong with you?" Like we literally, through their struggle is our struggle too,
Yeah.
and that's one of those issues that here we come again. Like this is the reason why when I am in groups, I'm like, "Look, we need to do the anti-racist work like seriously, like everything that we do in public health, in
Starts with us.
labor, in food accessibility, in everything we do, we have to do anti-racist work, because if we do not, these are the issues that come up all the time, no matter what organization you're in. Fight for that, fight for to be anti-racist. Like we cannot have anti-blackness in our groups. We have to really undo that in every single group we're in every single place. So thank you, Carlos, for saying what you did too, because yeah, our community needs to be called out, and we need to do a lot of deconstructing and decolonizing and really healing, because we cannot heal if we do not actually see the problem.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we're going to be
And
celebrating Indigenous Day. I know that you're going to wrap up, but I
oh
just
yeah.
want to say tomorrow we're celebrating Indigenous Day. That's
Yeah.
what we're celebrating. We are not acknowledging Columbus Day. Tomorrow is Indigenous Day. We celebrate Indigenous people, and we honor their land. We're standing in their land. We're standing in holy ground. This land belongs to them. So this program is dedicated to them tonight.
Thank you,
Margaret,
Carlos. Thank you, Jackie. And I just before we wrap up, I just want to add not just anti-blackness, but also racism against Asian Americans as well. Because I grew up in a town that is majority Asian, and I see a lot of that as well from the Hispanic or Latinx whatever community, and it's not acceptable either.
Yeah.
And it's just not. So okay, we have a lot of work to do. I hope that those three city council members resign. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This evening, you've been watching Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis for the progressive movement, and we call out those politicians when they're doing wrong. Doesn't matter who you are. And we are here at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time every Sunday. So please tune in. We're on Facebook. We simulcast on Facebook and YouTube. And we just want to talk about what's going on. And thank you. So we'll see you again next week. Please be safe, be healthy, and we'll see you then. Take care, everybody.
And write to
Have a
your
great.
letter.
Oh, and write
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 to your
that letter.
Congress. Yes.
Get marijuana, cannabis, deschedule. Bye.